everybody, Mike and Hannah here with Delta Faucet. Today, we're gonna walk you through how to install a Delta linear drain.
If you're planning a bathroom renovation or even a new construction project, Delta linear drains allow you to customize your bathroom appearance and functionality with a seamless aesthetic. These drains, offered in a variety of Delta finishes, bring personalized modifications to fit your needs. Delta linear drains can be installed to match tile, marble, and other natural stone for a cohesive, detail-oriented design. Just keep in mind the stainless steel trim and rough are sold separately.
Now, before we get started, there are a couple things that we should cover. First, there are a few locations where you can install this product in your shower. Today, we're gonna show you how to install the drain against the wall, but keep in mind this can also be installed in the middle of the floor or even wall to wall. Now, no matter where you're choosing to install the drain, the installation steps are similar, and we'll be sure to highlight the differences when we come to them. Now, in this video, we'll be installing the 36-inch drain, but note that the steps will be exactly the same for the 24-inch option as well.
And as you know, building code requirements are different everywhere, and there are different methods for waterproofing the shower space. Considering the scale and components of this project, we recommend using a professional tiler and licensed plumber to assist in completing this drain installation.
All right, with all that said, let's collect the tools and supplies that we're gonna need. You may need a wrench, a pencil, a square, a level, a tape measure, a utility knife, some silicone, a hacksaw, some tile thinset, some grout, a mortar trowel, some sealing compound, and some gloves and safety glasses. Here we are at the location that we'll be installing the drain rough into our shower pan. Now, the first step is determining where exactly we want that drain rough to sit. Now, one of the really nice things about this drain rough in particular is we can locate it in almost any position we need. So for example, I could do what's known as a centered installation, which is centered in my shower pan. If we had a couple curbs or a couple walls on each side, we could do a wall-to-wall installation. Or we can do what we're gonna run through today, which is what's known as a wall-mounted installation, meaning the drain rough is gonna sit tight against our back wall here. Now, there's a few things to consider when determining this location. The first, and what I think is the most important, is making sure that all the water in your wet location is gonna run into the drain in the location that you're selecting. Second, I think it's a really good idea to think through the finish material you're gonna be using to finish off your shower pan. So if you're using a specific tile or have a specific design in mind, just making sure the location of the drain is gonna be in such a spot that you're gonna be happy with how everything pulls together during those finish steps. And then finally, if you are doing a wall-to-wall installation or a wall-mounted installation, just keep in mind the wall material and the thickness you're gonna be using, as that will have an effect on the position of the drain rough itself.
Yep, as Mike mentioned earlier, we are doing a wall mount installation, so our drain rough will be tight against this back wall here. Now, if you're also choosing to do a wall mount installation, I want to make note of something really important. So you'll see here on our drain rough that there is a larger side, and then there is a smaller side. You want to make sure that this smaller side here goes towards the wall. In a later step, we're going to be installing a finished piece along this smaller side, so you want to make sure that you get that right. All right, so go ahead and determine your drain location, get your rough plumbing installed, and then we'll move on to dry fitting it in place. There are two main ways to connect your rough plumbing to your drain rough. The first is a no-hub sleeve, which we are using today, and the second is a clamp drain. It's really just installer's preference, but I will note that if you're choosing to use a clamp drain, the installation instructions that we show you today will be different, so you do want to pay attention to that.
Now, like Hannah mentioned, we are gonna be using that no-hub sleeve to connect our drain rough to our rough plumbing, which means we're also gonna be using the included support feet that came with your drain. Now, I do want to talk through these support feet since they have a couple features that I want to point out. The first is it has two individual feet that can be made shorter or longer by either screwing them in or unscrewing them to make them longer or shorter. Second, it also has a bracket that allows you to lock in the orientation of the feet. So if you're installing this in the middle of the room, you'd probably want these feet parallel with the body itself. However, since we're doing an against the wall application, a wall mounted application, we want to make sure that top foot is turned 90 degrees. That way I can get the drain tighter to the wall. Once you're happy with the orientation, you can take this bracket, slip it into the bottom of the feet, which will help lock those into place so they don't move around when you're doing the rest of the install. So for the first step of our dry fit is going to be making sure each one of these feet is as short as it will go. So the first thing we want to do is use this nut at the top, making sure that's gently tightened into place, and then also screw in the foot until it's as short as it could possibly be. Once you've got both sides locked into place, again, I want to check the orientation. Since I'm doing a wall mount, got my top foot at 90 degrees, and then lock them into place with the bracket. Now I'm going to hold this all together and then place this on the bottom of my drain rough, looking for that threaded stud towards the edge, and then slipping my foot over that stud, and then setting the whole thing down onto my shower base. Now, since we're going to be installing this against the wall, I want to remove my rough plumbing, pull that pipe out, then we can slide this into its exact location where we'll be eventually installing it.
All right, now you can see that ours is too high, even though we have those support feet as low as they'll go. So there is a way to adjust that, and I'll show you how. We're gonna remove those support feet. Take this bracket off of the bottom. And then we're going to unscrew, this is reverse threaded, so we're gonna unscrew the feet and then use a hacksaw to make the cut. So there's only one spot to make this cut, and that is right below the flange here. So go ahead and get that cut if you need to, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. All right, now we have our feet cut, and the side you can discard is this side that does not have the feet on it. So we can set those to the side. Now we're gonna grab the side that has the feet on it and our base here, and we're gonna screw these back in. Again, they're reverse threaded. So we'll screw those in until it's as short as it goes, but I don't want to make this snug. I just want to kind of loosely put them in there so that I can make some fine-tune adjustments later. So do the same for the other side. All right, now you want to make sure that your feet are oriented in a way that makes sense for your installation. So do the same as we had before, and then I'm going to stick this bracket right onto the bottom. All right. So next we're going to take our foam piece here, and there is a correct orientation for this. You can see that it only lines up one way. So we're gonna peel off the backing on one side. You can also go ahead and pop out all these middle inserts. All right, now just take the backing off of one side only, and then just place it down in the correct orientation. Just like that.
All right, now that we have that stuck to our support foot, we can start by adding the support foot to the bottom of our rough drain. So to do this, we're gonna remove the other side of the backing here. Like that, gently peel it off. You'll see that's got the sticky side up now, and we're gonna basically be sticking the adhesive to the bottom of our rough drain. Now you'll notice that when we place this over this stud, I'm gonna have a little bit of leeway where exactly I place this. Now, where you place it doesn't matter. We just wanna make sure that we're staying the support foot perpendicular to the rough drain body, and also that the position isn't gonna come in any interference with our installation location. So since I'm installing this against the wall, I'm gonna make sure I kind of move this a little bit away from the wall to make sure this front foot doesn't come in contact and lets me install my drain exactly where I need to. So once you're ready, hold everything together, make sure I'm placing it over the stud, generally perpendicular, and then press it into place, and that will hold it to the bottom of my rough drain. Hannah's gonna do the same thing on the other side, and then we're gonna be ready to rough fit this for the second time. With both feet in place, we can now gently turn over our rough drain here, and then place it back in its final location here over our rough plumbing. All right. Now you can see we have this rough drain sitting much lower than it was previously. Now at this point, the important thing we're checking is for two main things. First, I want to make sure that the level of the rough drain is sitting perfectly flat and level, both side to side and also front to back. Second, I also want to make sure that I have the appropriate slope all the way around my shower pan to make sure all the water is going to run to the drain. Now, if you do need to make some adjustments, you can do so by raising and lowering each one of the feet individually by turning these little black nuts at the bottom of each of the feet. That'll let you dial in the rough drain into the perfect position, making sure it's perfectly level and you've got a great slope from all corners of your shower pan. Once that looks good, we can go ahead and move on to connecting our rough drain to our rough plumbing. Again, for us, we're gonna be using that no hub sleeve. Then we'll come back here and do a quick water test to ensure everything's looking great.
Now it's time to do a quick water test. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and used some tape to tape up this waterproof membrane just to keep it out of the way. Next, I'm gonna peel up this protective plastic and discard it. That's the hair catch. You can just go ahead and put that back in the drain. All right, now I'm gonna take some water and I'm gonna pour it into our drain. I'm just gonna check that it's draining well.
Now at this point, I think it's a great idea to go ahead and check your fitting and plumbing underneath your rough drain as well to ensure you don't see any evidence of leaks that may need to be corrected at this point. Now, if everything looks good, you can go ahead and move on to installing the base layer of your shower pan. Just making sure everything is sloped into the drain to ensure all that water will run down and out. Once that looks good, come back here and we'll start talking about some waterproofing. Now that we have our shower base in place and we've let it cure fully according to the manufacturer's instructions, we can move on to waterproofing. Now the important thing here is making sure that we're getting this waterproof membrane that's already attached to the drain fully adhered into the fluid applied compound that we're using on the rest of our shower base. So to do that, I'm gonna start by adding a strip of waterproofing compound that's wide enough to be fully underneath the waterproofing membrane at each location it contacts with. So for our application here, that would be along the floor, along the front and the sides, but also up the back wall here, making sure that it's gonna stick fully to the wall and the floor. Once you put down that strip of fluid applied compound, you wanna use your trowel or your hand to make sure that you're working out any bubbles or any wrinkles you may have to ensure you're getting a full seal between the membrane and the compound underneath.
The second step is to apply a top coat of that fluid applied compound all along your waterproofing membrane, as well as the rest of your shower base. And that will ensure a watertight seal. All right, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the trim. All right, we've let our waterproofing cure according to the manufacturer's instructions, and now it's time to set our frame. So the frame looks like this, and as you can see, it has these nubs on these sides, and you want those nubs to be facing down when you place it into your drain rough, just like this. All right, now you're gonna grab the tile that you're planning on using in your shower base, and we're gonna put that tight against the side of our frame. Now you want the top of your frame to be flush with the top of your tile. And as you can see, ours is too low. So we're gonna use these spacers to bring up our frame to be flush with the top of our tile.
And I wanna take just a moment to talk about the spacer since there's a couple key features to point out. First, you'll see the spacer has a bunch of holes in the middle of it, and on one side has a bunch of even numbers, and on the other side is a bunch of odd numbers. And what these are basically corresponding to the different levels that we can raise the frame to make sure we're getting it at the perfect level with our tile. So to figure out which number we need to use, I'm gonna take my spacer, doesn't matter which side, I just wanna make sure that the numbers are in the right orientation, place it tight to the top of my frame, and then check the front surface of the tile here. What I'm looking for is to see at which hole the bottom of the hole is flush with the top of the tile. So in my instance here, I'm looking, and it looks like my hole number 5 is a little bit low, but my hole number 7 might be just a little bit high. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over to check the number 6. Again, placing it on the frame. And then number 6 looks perfect, where the bottom of that hole is sitting flush with the top of the tile. So now I know I need to use the number 6 spacer at this location on my frame. Now, one point of note here is you're gonna do the same steps at each one of the 8 locations. And also, if you're doing a wall mount installation like we are here, whatever number is on the front of the frame, I'm gonna use the same number on the back side just to make sure I'm keeping that frame nice and level.
And a pro tip here, I do think it's a good idea once you've figured out the mounting hole number at each one of your locations to go ahead and write those numbers down, because we are gonna be moving this frame, and just in case one of these falls off, it would be a good reference to have later. All right, so let's go ahead and determine which mounting hole number we need at each one of our locations, and then we'll attach our spacers. To attach your spacers, you're gonna pull your frame out of the drain, and then you're gonna grab a spacer, and it just presses on, so you wanna line it up with the whatever number you need to use, and you wanna make sure that that number faces out, and then like I said, it just presses on. So we'll go ahead and do the same for each one of our locations. Okay, once you've got all your spacers in, we're gonna dry fit it into place. All right, now we're gonna test the fit here. All right, great. So you can see that the top of our tile is flush with the top of our frame. Now remember, when you go to thin set in your tile, that will raise it above the top of your frame, and that's what you wanna see. You want the water to drain into the drain. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next step. All right, we've got our opening cleared out, and now it's time to talk about tiling. So included in your box is this tiling aid, and you're gonna use this by putting it into your drain rough, and then when you apply your thin set, this is gonna protect your drain from getting any thin set into it. So as you apply your thin set, you'll just move the tiling aid along the drain to protect it.
Now, once you have all your thin set laid, you can remove the tiling aid, and then it's time to drop your frame back into the drain.
Yep, now when you do this, you wanna make sure that all of your spacers have stayed on. And then one last step is to apply these side pieces. There are 2 of them, 1 for each side. And they do have a top and a bottom. You can see they have these little feet on them. And then a little nub here, you're gonna place that nub into the hole. Just presses in. Just like that. All right, now we're gonna set it down into place. All right, once you've got that in place, it's time to tile your shower base.
Now, if you're doing a wall mount installation like we are here, you wanna make sure that you're installing this included wall edge before you tile. You'll see it's got a finished side here and a longer side that has these little notches that are gonna slot into the frame that we just installed. Now, when you install this, you're gonna wanna run a bead of silicone sealant all the way along the back channel here from the top to the bottom. Once you have that sealant in there, you're gonna take the wall edge and it slots right into that frame until it sits all the way down. Now what this does is help create a nice watertight seal between this wall edge and the drain. That way the water's gonna run down your finished wall surface, hitting this wall edge and then emptying into the drain itself.
One last thing to note in this step is you don't want to grout between your frame and your tile or between your wall surface tile and your wall edge. You want to use silicone sealant instead of grout. All right, so let's go ahead and get this tiled and we'll be ready to move on. We've got our shower enclosure tiled, and we've also sealed the area between our floor surface and our drain, and also our wall surface and our wall edge here. We've let that cure according to the manufacturer's instructions, and now it's time to set our cover in place. So the cover looks like this, and there are 2 options on how you can install this. The first is to have this finished side facing out, and the second is to flip it over and to tile inside of here. So today we're gonna use the finished side facing out, and to set it in place, you just set it right inside of your drain, just like that.
Now to remove the cover, you're gonna use the tool that comes included with your trim. I'm gonna use this little hooked edge here to grab the back side of the cover, lift it up, and then gently lift it up and out of the drain. Now that I have the cover out, it's a great chance for me to talk about maintenance. The first thing you want to check is this little strainer at the drain itself, making sure it's clear of any debris that could be causing your drain not to function as well as it could. Once you have it clear, you can go ahead and set the strainer back in place, just making sure that it's sitting in there nice and flat with the level of the drain. And also, I don't think it's a terrible idea to go ahead and give a wipe down to the inside of the drain itself to ensure everything stays nice and clean. Okay, once you've got that done, you can take your cover to reinstall it. We're gonna do the same steps that Hannah just showed us. Again, setting it inside the frame, and then gently setting it into place. All right, everything's looking great, and that wraps up this install.
We hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to the Delta Faucet customer service team. They're more than happy to help.